Transport across membranes.
So we know that cells do a lot of things, and they're protected by cell membranes, right?
Right. But the thing is, sometimes cells need to let other things inside in order to help them get their work done. Of course, they can't let everything in, so there needs to be ways to regulate transport across membranes. This means keeping tabs on what goes in and what goes out.
There are a few things I must tell you before you proceed. Don't worry, if you don't understand them yet, everything shall indeed become clear with time.
A selectively permeable membrane allows some substances and not others across it. The phospholipid bilayer is the two layers that make up certain membranes. Hydro means water. Philic means liking. Phobic means not liking. So a hydrophilic substance likes water. A hydrophobic substance does not like water. Diffusion, osmosis, passive transport, and active transport are different ways in which substances pass across membranes.
That's all I can tell you for now, my friends. But for 2 donkeys, I can summon the strength to divine your test answers. Think about it.
Here's the cell membrane, or plasma membrane, which protects the cell. The cell membrane is selectively permeable, meaning it selects substances that can pass across it. The cell membrane is made up of a phospholipid bilayer.
Whoa, what does that mean? Let's break it on down.
Phospho stands for phosphorus. Lipid stands for, well, lipids, or fatty. Bilayer means 2 layers. So, the phospholipid bilayer is made of 2 layers of molecules, phosphorus and fatty lipids. This bilayer is like the security guard of the cell. It decides who gets in and who gets out.
Here's a model of the cell membrane or plasma membrane. It's called the fluid mosaic model. These big noodle-type things are protein molecules. These things are all lipids. The heads of the lipids here are hydrophilic, meaning they like water. They interact well with water. The lipids' tails are hydrophobic, which means they don't like water. They don't interact well with water.
Where are we going with this? We're going to look at 3 cool ways in which a selectively permeable membrane lets substances in and out. These processes are diffusion, osmosis, and transport, either passive or active.
Diffusion. Diffusion is when small molecules move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. It's like a drop of food coloring plopped into a flask of water. The dye moves from an area of high concentration, the big blob, to an area of low concentration, all the water in the flask. Now the food coloring is diffused throughout the water.
Okay, now osmosis. Osmosis is a special kind of diffusion involving water. If there's a higher concentration of water on the outside of the cell, water moves across the plasma membrane and into the cell. This is a hypotonic solution. If there's a higher concentration of water on the inside of the cell, water moves across the membrane and out of the cell. This is a hypertonic solution. These are examples of osmosis.
All right, what about transport? Another way substances pass across a membrane. Well, there's 2 types of transport, passive transport and active transport.
Let's start with explaining transport. In general, transport means there's a protein that hangs out on the plasma membrane and helps guide something else into the cell. Say you're waiting in line for a really exclusive nightclub. The doorman may or may not let you in, depending on whether he recognizes you as a friend of the movie star inside. Think of the door like the plasma membrane, and the doorman, the transport protein.
Passive transport is when the cell doesn't have to use any energy to transport a substance. If there is more of a certain substance on the inside or outside of the cell, the substance will naturally move from an area of higher concentration to lower concentration. If there are more people in the line outside of the club than inside, the doorman will leave the doors open and let people flow in until there is an equal amount of people on the inside and outside. This does not require him to do any work or the cell to use any energy.
In active transport, transport proteins reach out and grab molecules floating by and move them from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. This does require energy. Say the club is full and nobody else wants to go inside. If the doorman starts grabbing people and pushing them inside against their will, this is like active transport. Since he is going against the natural tendency of the people, the doorman has to do work, and the cell expends energy.
This is sort of the opposite of what would naturally occur in passive transport. Active transport requires energy, and that energy comes from ATP.
It's simple. Whenever you think of transport across membranes, think of DOTPA. Diffusion, osmosis, transport, passive and active. DOTPA.